Before I got trafficked, there was a whole bunch of things that happened before that, and that's my vulnerabilities, and that's where a lot of people who end up in the trafficking situation come from. They're coming from vulnerabilities. So for me, my vulnerability was again growing up in a home that my parents weren't really able to care and nurture and lead and guide me through life. And by the time I was probably 12, 13 years old, started drinking, drugging, hanging out with older boys, older girls, doing things I shouldn't have been doing. And I did experience sexual violence. I was raped at least twice by the time I was 14. We were drinking and we were partying on the weekends, and I was at a local nightclub. I was probably 19. And I meet a guy who knew some of my friends, so he wasn't a complete stranger. And then he offered to buy me a drink, and he brought me to the bar, and he spent a ton of money on me in that like short time, and I felt like intrigued. And we just started to date and get together, and he would meet my family, came over for a dinner, Thanksgiving, Christmas, took me out shopping, my nails done, really lavishing love and attention on me. And that was one of my biggest vulnerabilities, was the need to be loved and paid attention to. And he really honed in on that, and he groomed me into this position of becoming my trafficker. And while I wasn't thrilled about the idea, because I don't think any woman is, I don't think any little girl dreams of becoming a prostitute as they grow up, but vulnerabilities and unfortunate things happen to us and put us in situations, and before we know it, we get in this life and we can't get out. So he sent me down to Hartford, Connecticut to work in a massage parlor. No one knows what's going on behind closed doors. And I go into this building, my name gets changed, and I turn into this other person, and I have to wear skimpy dresses, high heel stilettos, and I have to sit in this musty building with these sticky couches with probably 12 to 15 other women, probably 16 to 50-year-old women who've been in this life for years. And the men come in, they pay the door fee, and then they go around the lounge and they pick whoever they want. And I was completely horrified. I was totally ashamed, I was disgusted. But at the same time, I was really excited because I made a lot of money very quickly. And that's kind of the draw, the addiction. Right away, I knew it was wrong, I hated it. I was still in college, I was still at the salon, and I just couldn't live this double life. And I started telling him I didn't want to do this anymore. I changed my mind after like a week or so. And that's when he started to use violence as a way to keep me under his control. I would end up being with him for 5 years. And I tried to escape so many times, but it never would work. But I also believed I was dirty and no good and a prostitute and no one would ever love me. So I stayed, and I was really stuck. It's a whole long story, but I got out, I got my own apartment, which led me to leave my trafficker finally. But then I got addicted to drugs, which is so common for so many women in the commercial sex trade, right? We either use drugs when we're in or as a way to cope for when we exit. And that brought me to a whole nother level of being low, that I had nowhere else to look but up. And a woman invited me to a church. I went to this church, and don't you know, like everything they said was like for me. I was like, did you tell the pastor I was coming? She's like, no, I did not. And then, so time goes on, and another woman takes me to church. And before we leave the parking lot, she turns around and she says, honey, do you want to know how you can be forgiven and washed clean and how much Jesus loves you? And I said, yes, who is this Jesus? And they're praying with me, and there's a few other women in the car, and I'm just weeping in the back seat, like knowing that I felt so dirty and so ashamed, but this holy God, this Jesus, could meet me there and love me was completely life-altering. That's where he meets us, right? Like in our stuff, and redeems and rescues. And I just found so much healing and comfort and acceptance in the local church, and that was amazing. My name is Jasmine Grace Marino. I'm a survivor of sex trafficking, and with your support, you can be an anchor of hope.